Welcome to HushyRest, a quiet corner for those drawn to quiet mysteries and slow stories. I am the voice behind this channel, and tonight I invite you to let the world fade away. Before we begin our journey, if you enjoy drifting into the quiet unknown, please subscribe and give this video a like. It is the best way to support this channel. Now make yourself comfortable and let's begin. Tonight, the city feels smaller. Curtains are drawn tight against the night. Even the stray cats have disappeared into warm corners of stone steps. String lamps hum softly, casting long amber reflections across damp pavement. The buildings here are old, not abandoned, not broken, just older than memory feels entirely comfortable holding. At the far end of a narrow street, where the cobblestones dip before rising again, stand a tall building few people think about twice. By day, it appears official, necessary. By night, it feels as though it is listening. Its windows are thin slits of darkness. Its heavy oak door is worn smooth where hands have pushed for years. Inside, the air carries the scent of dust and paper, ink long dried, wood that has held the weight of shelves for decades. Tonight, only one lamp is lit. It sits on a white desk near the center of the room. Its glow is warm but contained, barely reaching the nearest shelves. Beyond that cycle of light, everything fades into shadow. She prefers these hours. Alone at the desk, a sleeve rolled neatly to her wrist. Hands steady and practiced, she works in silence. Before her lies an old ledger, leather, cracked but polished from careful handling. Spine fragile, pages thin and pale. She lifts one page, turns it smooth and flat. There is a rhythm to this work. Lift, turn, brush away dust. The faint whisper of paper sliding over paper fills the room. Another page and another. Nothing unusual. Until her hand stops mid-air. The page before her is blank. Completely blank. She frowns, not alarmed, only curious. Blank pages are not impossible. Ink fades. Damage is repaired. But this feels different. She leans closer. there is something there. Not writing, nor a shape, only the faintest shadow at the center of the page. So subtle, it might vanish if she blinks too long. She tilts the book toward the lamp. The shadow shifts barely. It is not ink, not a stain. It is as though the paper remembers that something once pressed into it, as though the fibers are holding the outline of absence. Her hands hover above the page. The air feels cooler. Slowly, she lowers her fingertips until they barely graze the surface. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then a tremor. Not a page moving, not a ripple, more like the echo of something that once moved there. She withdraws her hand. The room is silent again. No footsteps in the hall, no turning handle at the door, only the steady glow of the lamp. Carefully, she closes the book. Leather meets leather. Paper settles. She opens it again. The blank page remains. But now, the shadow is darker, still without a shape, still subtle, in a place where nothing was meant to remain after being erased. Something had decided to stay. Silence. Morning never fully arrived inside the archive. The light changes, yes. It turns cooler, thinner, but the air stays the same. Paper, dust, time. She doesn't measure her days by clock anymore. She measures them by stacks. A pile of books on her left means she's just beginning. A pile of books on her left means she's just beginning. A pile on her right means the day is nearly done. It's careful work, quiet work. She restores records. If a span weakens, she reinforces it. If a page tears, she mends it with threads so fine they almost disappear. If ink fades, she preserves what remains without changing what was written. That part matters. The goal isn't to improve, not to revise, only to maintain. The books must remain exactly as they are, faithful, untouched by interpretation. She believed in that. There is a comfort in preservation, in the idea that something can resist decay simply because someone is patient enough to take care for it. Each morning, she unlocks the tall cabinets along the eastern wall. The oldest volumes rest there, thick, heavy, stamped with symbols most people wouldn't recognize anymore. She signs them out one by one, carries them to her desk, opens them with steady hands. The pages whisper when they're torn. Some names are bold, some barely there. Some has browned with age. Every entry precise, ordered, final. There is an understanding in this place. When something is written here, it remains. And when something is no longer here, it is not discussed. No one speaks of absence. No one questions empty spaces. If a page holds a gap, it is treated as intentional. If an entry ends abruptly, it is considered complete. That's the way of the archive. She has never questioned it. Her role is simple: preserve what exists. Do not speculate about what doesn't. By mid-morning, she almost convinced herself the shadow from the last night meant nothing. It was late. She was tired. Lamplight played tricks. The book has been returned, filed properly, aligned perfectly, order restored. She moved on, lift, turn, smooth. Hours drift past like dust in sunlight, and then she reaches the next book in her stack and pauses. This isn't the one she remembers placing there. The leather is darker, the edges more worn. Her fingers rest on the cover. She doesn't need to open it. She knows. It is the same book from last night. She is certain she returned it. Certain she locked the cabinet. Certain she checked the shelf twice. Perhaps she signed it out again without realizing. Perhaps she exhales slowly, opens it. The pages fall naturally to the center, to the blank one. The shadow is still there, subtle, patient, waiting. She doesn't touch it this time. Instead, she flips backward. The previous pages are unchanged. Names neat, ink steady. She flips forward. More entries, precise, ordinary. Only this page is empty. Empty and not empty. She closes the book. This isn't procedure. Books don't move on their own. Volumes don't reappear on shelves. Still, there must be an explanation. There is always an explanation. She stands, carries the book back to the Easter cabinet, and locks it. The correct volume is already there, in its proper place. Her stomach tightens, just slightly. Carefully, she slides the dark covered book between the others. Adjusts the rows so they stand evenly. Closes the cabinet. Locks it. The click echoes louder than it should. When she returns to her desk, the stack is exactly as she left it. Except there is one more book on top. Dark letter, worn edges. She doesn't rush, doesn't gasp. The room feels smaller. The shelves taller. Slowly, she sits. There are no rules for this, no instructions about repetition, about reappearance. Only the quiet certainty she's always trusted. If something is not meant to be present, it won't be. And if it disappears, it does not return. She opens the book again. The blank page waits. The shadow is darker now. Still shapeless, still subtle, but stronger. As if whatever once pressed into the paper is remembering itself. She feels it then. Not fear, not yet. Just the quiet awareness that the routine she has trusted for years has shifted. And in a place where nothing is ever questioned, once it disappears, something has begun to insist. There are rules in this place. No one recites them out loud, but everyone knows. The archive holds every name ever formally recorded in the city. Birth, appointments, transfers. Every official existence begins here in ink. The books are not decorative, not symbolic. They are final. When a name is written into the record, it becomes part of the structure of things, recognized, acknowledged, fixed. And when a name is no longer here, no one says erased, no one says removed. They say no longer present. She learned that phrase in her first year. An older archivist once handed her a repair volume and told her, very gentle, "You preserve what remains. You do not search for what does not." She nodded. It made sense at the time. If an entry ended mid-sentence, it was complete. If a page held a gap, it was intentional. If a name disappeared from a line where one had once been, no one commented. The assumption was simple. The record reflects what is true. If something is absent from the record, it is absent from the truth. She never asked who decided that, or how such decisions were made. Those questions did not belong to her desk. Her responsibility was smaller, precise. Reinforce the binding, stabilize the paper, protect the ink that still existed. Nothing more, nothing less. And yet, the dark cover book remains on her desk. She has not returned it this time. She tells herself she is waiting for clarity, but clarity does not come. Instead, she begins reading older entries more carefully than before. She studies the spacing between lines, the steady flow of the handwriting, every name placed with certainty. No hesitation in the strokes, no doubt. It makes the blank page feel louder somehow. By late afternoon, the light through the narrow windows turns dim and gray. The building settles into evening quiet. Footsteps fade down the corridor. Doors close one by one. Eventually, she is alone. The last archivist always turned off the overhead lights. Tonight, that is her. She finishes her final repair, stacks the restored volumes neatly, runs her fingers along the spine so they aligned perfectly. Order. She walks between the tall shelves, checks each cabinet, ensures every lock is secure. The building hums softly around her. When she returns to her desk, the dark cover book waits exactly where she left it. She hesitates only a moment, then closes it carefully. She places it at the bottom of the stack, blows out the lamp. Darkness fills the room in gentle layers. Only a faint street light spills across the floor near the door. She gathers her things, moves toward the exit. Her hand reaches a handle, and then a sound, soft, distinct, the whisper of a page turning. Behind her, not wood settling, not shelves shifting. Paper, one single page, sliding against another. She freezes. The sound does not repeat. The air remains still. Slowly, she turns. The shelves stand silent. The desk motionless in the dim light. She walks back. Each step measured. The stack of books appears untouched, but the dark cover volume is no longer at the bottom. It rests open at the center, on the blank page. The shadow is darker now, still not a shape, still not a name, but present, and in a place where absent is never questioned. Something has begun to insist on being noticed. She does not leave that night. She probably should. The hallway lamps have already dimmed to their lowest glow. Beyond the narrow windows, the city has softened into deep blue. The hour is late enough that even the distant wheels of passing carriage have disappeared, and yet she remains at her desk. The dark cover book lies open in front of her. The blank page waits. The shadow at the center has grown deeper, not dramatically, not enough that anyone else might notice. But she would. She has spent years studying the smallest fractions in paper figures. So she knows how ink settles, how it bleeds, how it fades with time. This is none of those things. She leans a little closer, resting her elbows lightly on the desk. The air around the box feels cooler. Still, she stares at the page long enough that her eyes begin to blur. For a moment, the shadow almost seems to pulse, but she cannot be certain. Then something happens. Not a sound, not exactly. It feels more like the brush of a thought that did not begin in her own mind. Soft, faint, as if a word had formed somewhere inside her awareness, without permission. She straightens slightly, The room remains silent. No door opening, no rustle of movement. Only the book. She inhales slowly, and the sensation returns. Still, not a voice, no sound traveling through air, just a presence where thoughts usually rise. A word appears, incomplete. Listen. It is not spoken. It is not heard. It simply exists for a brief moment inside her mind. Her pulse quickens, not from fear, from recognition. The world does not belong to her. She closes her eyes. The darkness behind them feels white, quiet. Perhaps she is simply tired. Perhaps she has stared too long at a page that holds nothing. She tells herself that, but when she opens her eyes again, the shadow has thickened slightly. Still not a shape, still no letters. Only the suggestion that something once pressed into the paper with intention. Her fingertips hover above the page. The air hums faintly, not with sound, but with tension. Another fragment brushes through her thoughts. Broken. No, not like that. The words drift through her mind slowly, like loose pages carried by a quiet current. She does not answer. There is nothing to answer. No face before her, no figure rising from the dim light. Only blank paper. Yet the feeling deepens. Something like a memory flickers at the edge of her perception. Not hers. A long table, hands folded upon it, light failing across polished wood. Several figures seated in silence. Voices speaking, but she cannot hear the words, only the heavy feeling of someone speaking and no one truly listening. Her breathing becomes shallow. She pulls her hand away from the page. The room remains unchanged. The tall shelves stand motionless. The ladder rests against the walls. The lamp beside her burns steadily. Nothing visible has changed, only the page. The shadow deepens once more. Then another fragment forms. No, it will not set. The thought feels incomplete, as though a sentence once began long ago and was interrupted before it could finish. She presses her palm against the desk to steady herself. This should be impossible. Paper does not speak. Ink does not remember. Records do not argue with silence. And yet, the sensation grows clearer. Not louder, clearer. Like someone leaning close, not in body, but in thought, asking to be heard. Again the words appears. Listen. Listen. This time it lingers longer, not demanding, not forceful, almost pleading. Her throat tightens. For years, she has preserved what remains, protected ink from fading, guarded the integrity of every written name. But she has never wondered what might exist beneath what was removed. The idea unsettles her, because if something erased can still insist, then erasure was never complete. She leans closer once more. The lamp flickers softly, just once. And in that brief shift of light, the shadow almost found the beginning of a curve. Not a full letter, not yet. Just the faintest suggestion of the first stroke of something once written long ago. Her heartbeat grows louder in her ears. Still, nothing else appears. No figure, no movement in the room. Only deeper darkness where blankness should be. Then one final fragment presses into her thoughts. Not all was told. The impression fades slowly, like breath on cold glass, disappearing into air. The room returns to ordinary stillness. The shelves remain silent. The desk solid beneath her hands. The lamp calm again. But something has changed. The page is no longer empty. It holds interruption. It holds insistence. It holds the weight of a sentence that never reached its end. She sits there for a long time, saying nothing, listening. And in the quiet archive, where absence is treated as final, something has begun to speak without a voice. She does not remember deciding to touch the page again. Her hand simply moved slowly, not pulled by curiosity, but by something heavier, something closer to gravity. Her fingertips settle on the darkened center of the page. The paper is cold, cooler than it should be, and the moment her skin makes contact, the archive begins to recede. Not vanish, just move further away. The shelves blur at their edges. The lamplight dims. The dust drifting into the air becomes something distant and unfamiliar. She does not close her eyes. And yet, she is no longer entirely in the room. Light appears, not the warm glow of her desk lamp. A bright light, clear, falling from somewhere high above. It spills across a long table, polished wood. The surface reflects pale shapes she cannot fully see. Chairs lined both sides, occupied. She cannot make out faces. They seem turned away from her, or perhaps hidden by distance. But she can feel them, still, rigid, waiting. The air in this other place feels heavier than the archive, thick with something unspoken. No one moves, no one shifts. There is only the faint rhythm of breathing, measured, controlled. At the far end of the table, someone stands. She cannot see the figure clearly, only an outline. A person upright in the bright spill of light, hands resting on the polished surface, knuckles pale. And then a voice begins to speak. Not loud, not trembling, steady. She cannot hear the words themselves. They do not reach her ears, but she feels the shape of them, sentence unfolding carefully, placed in the quiet room after another. She seated figures remained motionless, no interruption, no agreement, no objection, only silence. A silence that presses against the air. The standing figure continues speaking. Another sentence. Another pause. There is something fragile in the tone. Not weakness, but urgency. The urgency of someone trying to place the draw on a table where it may not be welcome. The bright light hangs faintly overhead. Dust drifts slowly through the air. Time stretches, sentence ends. The figure waits. Nothing comes. One of the seated figures shifts slightly. A soft scrape of wood against the floor, but still not response. The silence grows heavier, not empty, heavy, like a decision forming without words. The standing figure speaks again, softer now, as though clarifying something, as though offering one more change for the room to understand. Back in the archive, her fingers presses slightly harder into the paper. She feels the grain of the paper beneath her skin. At the same time, she feels the tension in that distant room. The way the air tightens, the way the light feels almost too bright. A hand at the table lifts, not to interrupt, not to reassure, just lift. Then lowers again. The voice at the end of the table falls silent. A final sentence, though she cannot hear it, settles into the air. And then stillness. Long enough to feel deliberate, long enough to become its own answer. The seated figures do not meet the speaker's gaze. Some look down, some stare forward, some turn slightly away. The moment hangs there, balanced, and then something shifts. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with finality, as though a page somewhere has been turned. The standing figure remains still for a heartbeat longer. Then two. The hands slowly lift from the table. The shoulders draw inward slightly. Not defeated, but change. The bright light above continues. Unmoved, indifferent. Around the table, the seated figures begin gathering their papers. Slowly, deliberately. Chairs slide back across the floor in careful unison. The sound echoes through their bright room. No one speaks. The standing figure does not try to stop them. Does not speak again. The moment has passed, and with it, something else. Something she cannot quite name. The image begins to dim. Edges soften, light fades. The long table stretches into blue. The figures dissolve into pale silhouettes But beneath it all, one feeling remains clear. Words were offered and left unanswered. Her breath catches. Slowly, the archive returns. The lamplight gathers again in a small circle of the desk. The tall shelves sharpen back into focus. The faint hum of distant city slips through the narrow windows. Her hand is still resting on the page. The shadow beneath her fingertips is darker now, more defined, not yet letters, but closer. She lifts her hand carefully. The room is unchanged. Not bright ceiling light above her. No long polished table across the floor. No silent figures watching. And yet, the feeling remains. A voice that tried. A room that refused. She swallowed slowly. Fragments linger at the edge of her thoughts. The bright light, the still figures, the silence that answered speech. She does not know who stood at the table. She does not know what was said. She does not know what decision followed. Only this. Something spoken in that room did not vanish when the meeting ended. It followed the paper, pressed itself into the paper, waited, and now, through her touch, it has begun to remember. The next evening, she arrived earlier than usual. Not because of urgency, not because she's afraid, but because something inside her has shifted slightly. Just enough that the routine no longer feels complete. The archive greets her exactly as it always does. Tall shelves, narrow windows, dust floating patiently through the quiet beams of light. Nothing in the room acknowledges what she experienced the night before. Nothing confirms it. And yet, she does not walk to her usual cart of damaged volumes. Instead, she pauses beside the central catalog. The drawers are arranged alphabetically, neatly labeled ordinary. She slides one open. Inside, the catalog cards rest in long rows. Thick paper, edges softened by decades of careful hands. She flips through them slowly, not searching for a name, not yet. She's searching for time. The fragments she felt the night before, the bright room, the long polished table. Something about it belonged to a particular decade. She cannot explain why she knows that, but she trusts the instinct. Her fingers pause. She removes one card, then another, then a third. Each card points to a letter stored deeper in the stacks. She notes their codes silently, writes nothing down, just remembers. When she retrieves the first volume, it recedes slightly as she pulls it free, as though the shelf itself hesitates to release it. The cover is darker than the others from the same period, handled often, or perhaps handled carefully. She brings it back to her desk, opens it. The pages are orderly, names arranged in narrow columns, dates aligned with quiet precision, official stamps pressed in dark ink at the bottom of each page. Everything exactly as it should be. At first, then she sees it, a gap between two entries. But the line itself is empty, not torn, not damaged. The line simply holds nothing, as though something was once written there and later was not permitted to remain. She turns the page. More names, more dates, another stamp, then another gap. This one is slightly wider. Her breathing remains calm. She does not rush toward conclusions. Archive age, ink fades, clerks make mistakes. But when she retrieves another letter from the same year, the pattern returns. Clean, precise, intentional, spaces, not chaotic damage, structured absence. She studies the stamps preserved at the bottom of the page. Each missing line carries the same mark, a circular seal, barely raised in the paper. She runs her fingertip across it softly, gently. The emblem is familiar, but rarely used. She has seen it before only in older volumes that were later reorganized. The word settles quietly in her mind. Reorganized. She closes the ledger and retrieves another. Different binding, different handwriting from the clerk who recorded it. But the same year. She flipped through slowly. Names, dates, entries proceeding normally. Then, a section where the paper tone shifted slightly, almost invisible, as though the page was replaced long ago. Inserted carefully enough that the most readers would never notice. The sequence of names continues, but the margins are narrower now, the spacing tighter, as if the page had been adjusted to hold fewer lines, or to remove something that once took space there. She leans back slowly in her chair. The archive creaks softly around her. Not one missing line. It is a pattern, a cluster of a quiet absence, all within the same span of years. Each mark with the same seal. She retrieved another ledger, then another. The pattern repeats. In one volume, entire sections are rearranged alphabetically. Even though earlier entries from the same year were recorded chronologically, why change the structure midway through a record? There is no note explaining it. No correction notice, no comment at all. Only the silent adjustment. She rests both hands on desk. The wood beneath her palms feels steady, rounded. Unlike the slow realization forming in her chest, this was not carelessness. It was deliberate. Names removed, sections tightened, page replaced, stamps applied, shelves recorded, and afterward, silence. She returned to the first letter, turns again to the earliest empty line, tilts the page gently toward the light, and there, barely visible, a faint indentation in the figures. Not ink, pressure, as though something was once written firmly enough to leave a memory in the paper. The blank page from the night before, the one that darkness beneath her touch, belonged to the same period, the same year, the same seal. Whatever happened in that bright room, at that long table, was not a single moment. It happened more than once. And afterward, the record was adjusted carefully. She closes the letter gently, returns it to the shelf, then another, then another, aligning each volume perfectly with the others. From a distance, nothing has changed. The archive remained immaculate, orderly, complete. But now she understands something simple and irreversible. The record is not broken. It has been shaped, curated, and the empty spaces in its pages are not accidents. They are decisions. The archive is quiet, quieter than usual. The lamps glow softly, stretching long shadows across the tall shelves. She sits at her desk. The dark cover book lies open before her. Her fingers hover above the page. The shadow is still there, but something about it has changed. It trembles, fading slightly. She does not see this only with her eyes. She feels it, like a weight pressing gentle at the edges of thought. Subtle, but unmistakable. She leans forward, resting her elbows on the desk. The familiar scent of ink and dust filled the air. For years, that smell meant stability, routine, but tonight it carries a different feeling, reflection. Her thoughts drift back to the letters she examined earlier. The empty lines, the reorganized pages, the repeated seal. For decades, perhaps longer, those absences had gone unquestioned. No one noticed, no one remembered, and yet she does. And slowly, a realization settles in her mind. Disappearance is not always final, not if someone still remembers. The idea presses against her thoughts like something heavy and undeniable. What does it mean for something to vanish? When memory refuses to release it, when touch recalls it, when thought preserves it, even after the record has erased it. The shadow flickers beneath her fingertips. Weaker now, its edges softer. The fibers of the paper seem to relax, as if the page itself is letting go. They lowers her hand closer, not touching yet, waiting. But the shadow does not strengthen. It continues to thin. An strange urgency rises in her chest. Urgency is unfamiliar here. The archive is built on patience. Pages and records remain. Time moves slowly through shelves and ledgers. But this feels different. Not minutes, not hours, something deeper. Existence itself. She watches as the shadow grows faint. Almost nothing now, almost erased. Her hand trembles slightly. She tries to steady it. For years, she has relied on patience, careful work, deliberate preservation. But patience alone cannot hold what is fading. Her thoughts returned to memory again. If she were to look away, if she were to forget this page entirely, would the shadow disappear completely? Would it ever have existed at all? The question lingers in the quiet room. She breathes slowly. The faint vibration she once felt in the page returns. Weaker now, just enough to remind her what is being lost. observation is no longer enough. She understands now. The moment of simply watching has passed. If something is disappearing, then something must be done. Even if she does not yet know what that is. The shadow continues to fade, fragile now, barely present, but she does not move away. Her hands remain ready, her gaze steady, because she realized something important in that moment. Sometimes the only thing standing between existence and disappearance is someone who refuses to forget. She remains seated. The lamp cast a quiet circle of light across the desk. The shadow beneath her fingers has grown thin now, almost gone, almost nothing. The room feels very still, and inside that stillness, a decision began to take shape. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just a quiet certainty forming inside her. The archive has rules, silent rules, absolute ones. Names exist here, or they do not. Once removed from the record, they vanish from the system entirely. Absence becomes final. Absence becomes final. Her hand hovers above the fading page. She could allow it to continue. Let the shadow disappear completely. Close the book. Return it to its shelf. Leave everything exactly as it has always been. Order preserved. But something inside her resists that ending. A small weight presses against her chest. The memory of the room she cleansed, the long table, the voices that spoke and were never answered. She does not feel rebellion, not deficiency, only responsibility. The record may insist on absence, but memory does not always obey. She reaches quietly into her bag and pulls out a small notebook, plain and remarkable. Its pages are blank, waiting. She places it beside the open ledger. The contrast between them feels strangely comforting. The archive page is governed by rules. Her fingers rest on the empty paper. Then she lifts her pen. For a long moment, she does nothing. She watches the shadow beneath her hand. It flickers once, then steadies faintly. She takes a slow breath and begins to write, letter by letter, slowly, carefully. A name appears on the page, not inside the archive, not in any official record, but here, in her own notebook, a quiet act of preservation. She writes nothing else, no date, No explanation, only the name. The ink settles gently into the paper. She studies it for a moment. The letters are simple, almost fragile on the empty page. She traces them lightly with her fingertip. There is no vibration now, no shadow beneath the surface, only certainty. This memory is safe here. She closes the notebook slowly, not in haste, but with care. The letter remains open for another moment. The shadow within its fears continues to fade. Perhaps it will vanish completely. But somewhere else now, the name remains. She stands, slides the letter back in its place among the others. Every spine aligned, every shaft unchanged. From the outside, nothing has been altered. The archive remains perfect, orderly, complete. Yet, she knows something simple is different. Memory does not require permission. Presence does not require a system. She has remembered, and for now, that is enough. She closes the door behind her. The hallway outside the archive is empty. Lamp hum softly along the walls, and far beyond the building, the city murmurs. In the distance echoes. Inside the archive, the shadow has settled again. The faint presence she felt before is gone. No whispers, no impressions lingering in her thoughts. And yet, something feels different. Not frightening, not strange, just aware. The archive no longer feels completely empty. She walks slowly between the tall shelves, letting her fingertips brush the spines of the books. Everything is still, but there is a weight here now. The quiet weight of something remembered. She pauses beside the desk. The dark letter rests closed. Her small notebook lies beside it. The shadow in the official record may fade. The archive itself may remain silent. But somewhere else, the name still exists. Not for recognition, not for approval. Simply to be remembered. She turns toward the exit. Her footsteps echo softly across the wooden floor. She leaves the lamp glowing behind her. The room sinks into a calm, gentle darkness. A different kind of silence now. One that holds what might otherwise disappear. In that quiet, she understands something simple. Sometimes the only thing an existence needs is someone who remembers.